when I heard about this case, it's I can relate to it because I know someone who has epilepsy or this condition where they black out and they will get these uncontrollable reaction to they can't control the body, right? And she has that condition, and I live with someone who has that condition, and so I know what she's going through, and I can relate to what is why she can't remember certain things of this event, because this is what happened to these when you have this condition. Your memory is very vague. Is not normal. It's sometimes they just remember little bits and pieces of an event. Even when you talk to them, like a couple of days ago, they kind of remember what you talked about, but not exactly. Like some people can recall what they said and stuff, but even normal people, they don't recall exactly what people says. But for them, it's even worse. It's very hard to remember. So I can relate to what is she going through, and that's the problem. These detectives, these prosecutor, these jury, they just can't relate to her. They don't understand what she's going through or why she can't remember certain things. And so there's like probably 1% of the world has this condition. And that's like knowing a billionaire. Not too many people know them, right? So that's why I think this whole case is all messed up, because these detectives doesn't understand. And the fact that it looks like one of the troubling thing that they find is if these burglars rob the place and they leave the garage open, why didn't they take the stuff and go? And why didn't they take their car? Like there's a car in the garage, they have the key, everything. Why didn't they do it? So that's what I think made them puzzled, don't understand why this is the case. And so they kind of blamed it on her, and they just went for it. They don't understand why all this happened, so they just accuse her of doing all this. And it just doesn't make any sense if you actually sit down and think about it. Okay, let's just say she planned it, right? And she's capable of stabbing her husband 31 times. And they can tell there was a struggle. Let's just say she doesn't have hip surgery. It doesn't affect her that much. She's 50 something, yet she's capable, right? So let's just say all that. Now she kills him in the closet, then she goes and hides in her closet. Then why would she open the garage waiting for someone to come? Like, what if a stranger comes in and kidnap, like take her dog or take stuff, and because they're upstairs, how would they know? And if they come in, then and they hear someone crying for help, they're not going to go and help, because then why are they in the house? Who walks in the house of someone who they don't know? If you're walking in the house of someone you don't know, the door is open, then you're probably trying to get something, take something, right? So that's why it doesn't make sense for her to leave the garage open and then go hide in the closet waiting. Why wouldn't you kill her husband somewhere downstairs where someone can see when they walk in, and then they can call for help or do whatever? It just doesn't make any sense. This theory doesn't add up. So it's like, in this world, there's just, when something happens, there can be a million theory, a million possibility, but there can only be one right one, just like DNA. It's 99% that is the correct person, because it's like you can think that person did it or involved, and they're so everything connect. But when the DNA comes back and it's not them, then what? That means there's just one possibility that something like this happened. this event happened one way and one way only. For everything to connect, for everything to make logical sense. In this world, everything is logical. Things happen for a reason. There's no miracle, there's no, these things don't really happen. Logically, there's no miracle. There's just things that happen, something that react to certain things. All these things, all of them make sense. Why things land where they do, all these things, right? So the thing is, she said something in the interview that could be reasonable to think this event happened this way, that I believe it happened. Because she said when she was coming home from their dinner, she had an encounter with someone who was in an SUV, who she said, you were following too close, it's too dangerous, right? So, and then they started to follow them home, yet they turned left and she turned right, right? They turned right. So this simple event could cause someone to just hate them, just to want to do harm to them, because there's people who get cut off in the road and they would get violent, right? There's one I think story that I heard that someone got shot because someone cut them off. These things happen. People, when they're driving, there's something about it that piss people off more or something. That's why there's a lot of road rage and all of this. So that event could technically be the cause of all of this. So when they go home, they go in the bathtub and they sit there for like 2 hours, right? In this 2 hours, these people could have drove by and noticed there's the car. That's the same car that, stopped them, right? So they could have staked the place out, checking to see how many people are in the house. And when the husband let the dog out, right, there's the opportunity, because they know he's going to have to let them in sooner or later, right, at nighttime. So they would have waited out there at the back, waited for them to bring the dog back inside. So the DNA also show that there's two people. There's a male and a female, right? Unidentified male and a female. That is perfectly logical. That means that when the husband came out to get the dog, the male would technically grab him and probably put a chokehold on him, telling him, shut up and don't fight or I'll kill you, right? So, and obviously they wouldn't dare to kill people, or probably just want to rob them and probably just want to, teach them a lesson. Don't tell us how to drive, right? So that could be it. And so then they would go in the house, and then obviously to get a more advantage, they would take a knife. So they take the kitchen knife. And the girl would be like, where's your wife? We know there's two people in the house. Is there anyone else? Obviously the husband will say no. And then they would threaten him with the knife, asking him, where's his wife? Where's she? Right? So obviously he would say, upstairs. So if he goes upstairs, right, he knows in his closet there's a gun. So he could technically say he has a safe up there, or they ask, do you have any valuable? He could say there's a safe. So he basically lure them there so that he can try and fight them and get the gun. That's right. So there's the fight. And obviously girls, they're not going to go hand-to-hand combat with someone. If there's a chance they can knock that person out without them knowing, that's great. That's something they would do. And it just happened to be that when the girl went upstairs to to find the wife, she would see that she was in the closet getting dressed or doing something, and that's her opportunity to knock her out. And that's exactly what she did. And when she did that, obviously Sandra went into her episode, and the girl probably didn't know what was going on. Why is she shaking? Why is she doing what she's doing? Because when you have these episodes, these epilepsy, they can look really strange to people who've never seen them before. And so she could have ran back and said, I hit her in the head, but she started shaking, looking like she's crazy or something. And obviously the husband knows what it is. He's probably going to say she's having a seizure, right? So he could have freaked out. He could have, wanted to protect her. Like it would have made him more rage, right? So he would have tried and at that moment try and run for it, grab his gun from his closet, and that's probably where the fight happened, and that's where the stabbing is. That makes logical sense that all this happened, right? And then obviously they're not kill her. They throw the knife away and they tie the woman up because she's already kind of like out of it. So they didn't really need to kill her. So they tie her up, try and lock the door, and then they try and search everything around the house, and they take pills. Who takes pills? Well, people who like drugs, probably, right? So usually they're probably into some sort of drug themselves. They could be selling or using. So that could be another reason why they would actually do something like this, right? People on drugs and do drugs, they can be very devious, right? So, and then this is the thing that I think the detective missed because they don't understand. They're too busy thinking she is guilty. They're wondering why the garage is open and why did the burglar just took all these equipment and yet left them behind, right? Why didn't they take the car either? So what does that tell you? So that's where they're confused, and I believe there's a logical explanation for this. I think the guy was taking all the electronic and stuff. As he's going out to the garage, he tells the girl to find the key so we can take the car. And I think at this point, when he was out there in the garage, she was in there trying to find the key, and she could accidentally press the button to open the garage. She accidentally pressed it by accident. She didn't know. And what happened? The guy in the garage freaked out. He thought, oh my God, someone's coming home. They're going to find out. So what does he do? Drops everything, runs back inside, tell her someone's coming home, right? So they bust out and went to the back door. And they know the back door is open. It has to be. It's logical. It just makes everything make sense. If the back door is open, then my theory is correct. Everything should align perfectly. Nothing should be out of place. And obviously, there's going to be blood and some kind of DNA left behind because they wouldn't are planning to just kill and then clean up everything, right? They're in a hurry, they're in a rush, and I think there's probably fingerprint on the equipment that they were about to take with them, but then they left behind. So there's definitely fingerprint, blood stain. There's definitely a lot of their DNA there, and so they know this, but they can't find the person because you need the person to match it with, right? You can have the DNA, but you need that person to match it with. So they have the evidence, but the problem is they already made up their mind that she is guilty. So they don't see this. They can't see this. They're blind to it because they're too busy thinking it's her. But just like DNA, everything has to line up. If one thing is out of place, it's not the right person. It just doesn't make any logical sense why she would do anything like this. Because think about it, she's almost 50. She has this disability, which means she can't she can't just get a simple job. She can't even get a McDonald's job, because any kind of a waitress job, because you can drop food on people, right? Because you can have this. Sometimes people say it's under control. They know when it's coming. Even she says she knows when it's coming. But trust me, there's time where you don't know when it's coming. They just don't know. There's no warning sign. So it just comes. So that's why she doesn't even have a job. Why would she kill her husband? For what? Someone's there to grow old with, and she has this condition. She needs somebody. She can't live by herself. It's very hard. And she's probably really grateful that he is such a good husband and he take care of her. So there is no possible way, if you can relate to her, there is no possible way she could want to kill him. For what? Get a couple of 100,000 and live off of that? Who can live off of that these days? You can probably live off $1 million for a certain amount of time, but it still runs out. So, and she's old. What is she gonna do? Remarry? There's all these text messages, all these things. They don't bring up anything because they can't find anything. There's nothing to find. Yet they plant all these things, and also these investigators. I believe they're kind of very tricky. Like they know how the system works, and they play it. Like in the interview, the first interview, she comes in, they ask her these questions. It's the same question. There's nothing new for the second interview, right? So they bring her in the second time, and she brings in a cane. Like you might as well put a strap of put a neck brace on her just to show that it's like they're trying to show how fake she is. They even ask questions like, if someone didn't know that you have hip surgery, could they tell? It's like they're trying to make her look like she's some sort of like fake, like she's a faker. And then the other thing is, I think normal people, like people who have been married for a long time, do they have anniversary? It's just not common, because it's like you've been that person for so long. Anniversary is more like for the beginning, when you're in love and stuff, and when you get older it's kind of fade away. But obviously for some people, they still have anniversary when they're really in love, right? So some people can't relate to that also. So then it made it seem like, is she trying to say they're really lovey and so she couldn't do this? So all these things play in people's mind. It makes her look more guilty. But if you know her and you can relate to her, especially with this medical condition, then you can see clearly that she cannot do this. There is no way she would do this. There is no reason for her to do this. And so it really make me wonder, like, there's just some detective shouldn't be a detective. It's crazy to have people who judge people when they don't even know what it's like to be in that situation or to be that person. It's like you're telling someone who judge a boxing match, and they don't know nothing about boxing. It's like that. It's weird, and it doesn't make any sense. Any kind of event where you need someone who knows something about these people, these jury, they probably never watch any crime scene, any crime show, or any of these things. And so for them to judge someone in a certain situation like this, especially when they're interrogated and how they would feel, it's like, how can you relate? How can you relate to these people if you've never been in those situations? and you're asking these people to judge her? It's insane. It's a recipe for disaster. These detectives knows how these people will be thinking. They've been in the game for so long that they know how to manipulate the jury. So who are we supposed to blame here? The way I see it is, this is just so wrong that it's just unbelievable. When you clearly see things, it's just unbelievable.